So I will call the Concord Carlisle School Committee to order.
And I'll call Concord School Committee to order.
Great. I have not been promoted as a panelist yet.
That's because
so
I'm
I
just getting on.
don't know. Oh, it's you that's doing it. Okay.
Yeah, 1 second.
So I don't see if our CCHS students are on with us yet.
1 minute.
So we'll just take a pause. I forgot I bought those. They're in my Christmas closet. Yep. Oh, good to know. One thing down.
For what? Like, who gets a cheer mug for Christmas?
They weren't, you could get them without the cheer part, just to CC.
Mine just has the cheer on it.
Fox.
So Maddie's
Big supporter.
here.
Okay, great. Hey, Maddie.
I only see Matt. Is it just you, Maddie? I don't see the others.
Hey, Maddie. We're ready for your update if you are ready. Are you the only one coming this evening? Can she hear
I don't
me?
think she can hear you. She doesn't look like she.
Oh, because I'm muted?
No.
We have a,
Let me check.
You have to be muted or we'll have all that.
right, the feedback. Maddie, can you hear us?
She can't hear us.
What about, like, is her audio just off at home, do you think?
She's still muted, I see.
Okay, well, let's start with Lori.
Okay, great.
And
Yeah.
then we'll try to figure out Maddie.
Perfect.
Can you email Maddie? and let her
Or
know?
chat. Yeah, I can do it. You go ahead.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you. So it's been a really busy few weeks, so I thought I'd mention some of the highlights. So the launch space, we're really excited. We signed the lease and received the keys to the 199 Sudbury Road space. It's really perfect. It's cozy. It's 800 square feet, 3 separate rooms. We're going to be able to have a workspace and then set up the retail space in the outer part. We're really excited. So a lot more to come, but we're off and running there, so we're excited about that. Last Thursday morning felt like a really special morning. We had a DEIB panel at the high school. Students and staff bravely volunteered to tell courageous stories of what it's like in their experience at the high school, whether they are autistic, have dyslexia, are in the LGBTQ community, Black, Metco, Latina, immigrants. It was a really powerful hour. And I think I knew we had accomplished something when one of the 9th graders, it was 9th and 10th grade in the audience, she raised her hand and said that she was a member of the transgender community and wondered what CCHS was going to be like, and now she knows. So really powerful, and thank you to the courageous young people who are willing to give themselves in front of 600 peers. At the same time, they launched Playbook Initiative at the middle school, and for the first time, we used a real scenario. It wasn't fictional, it was real from a different district in Massachusetts last year, where some students created an online Black slave auction of their Black peers. And we were able to talk with kids about upstanders and what do you do when you hear stuff like that is brewing. Really powerful discussion. I think it did matter that it was a real situation. The kids really took that seriously. We hesitated, I'll be honest, we hesitated, and then Andrew and Justin and I talked a lot about it, and we said, if the work's gonna matter, it's about talking about real life and not just fiction. And so we're proud of the middle school work last week, and that's the first of 3 playbook sessions that they'll have this year. So we're looking forward to the next couple of rounds that are coming up. CMS has also held enrichment fairs this week for it's really their version of Flex Block. They have an RTI, RTE block and either kids get intervention where they need it in a really friendly way by staff, or for enrichment activities of their choice. Again, much of like Flex Block, where teachers are offering things that interest them. It was a really fantastic, yesterday was 7th, today was 8th grade, where the kids just shared what they had been working on. I chatted with kids who had been studying philosophy, mysteries and history, all sorts of different things. A Chinese club where they danced a cute little song and sang numbers in Chinese and things, like a full range. And Justin proudly said, and you can't tell which kids are in the interventions versus which ones are in the enrichments. And I said, I absolutely cannot. So that was really, really exciting too. I don't think we talk enough about the middle school block that parallels Flex Block. That was my takeaway from being over there.
Can I just interrupt for 1
Yeah.
second? People at home cannot see or hear us.
Oh.
Okay, we'll check with MMN.
It might be
Sorry.
important.
Yeah.
I think it's, is it other people?
Oh, it's because he's not a
yes.
panelist. I'll take care of that right now.
Well, you have 2 attendees raising your hand, too. so-
Recording in progress.
Well,
All right,
Maddie
let's see if
Clancy's
And
that
on
Maddie
there.
even has her.
So maybe we can ask Maddie.
I think we hadn't made him a panelist yet, so maybe that's why.
Sorry.
Hi.
Oh, yay, Maddie.
Maddie, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Do you want me to finish and then we'll cue Maddie?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, hold on, Maddie, because I filled the time while we were getting the technical issues set up. A few other topics then, just to note. We attended the Rotary Club football cheer luncheon annual event yesterday. They hold it now at Minuteman down the road. Lexington's turn to host, so they were there. Former Patriot Andre Paquette was there. Really nice community activity. We bring the captains of cheer and football, and a lot of just really positive talk about not just what football can be, but what community can be. And I don't know if those of you who know Rotarians are a member of, it's a really special group of people, so. Final comments, we've been touring the middle school with the teachers. It's the first time they've been in months, so I was able to tag along yesterday, and people were able to see their own spaces. Really, really fun. Yeah, they're really excited, and could start to envision being there, and hey, where am I gonna do this? And really exciting. And then just last, I know I had this in one of my Friday updates a few weeks ago when the new website rolled out. That was a 2-year project to get the new website launched. I will acknowledge there are some broken links, and that's here and there. There aren't tons of them, but because the old website is down and it was so dense and deep, anything that was only embedded in the old website won't necessarily get you there. However, we have access to all of it. Obviously, we can provide things if people are looking for it. What we're not going to do is recreate the abyss that we had before, so we're happy to provide things. Simultaneously to that, we've now balanced out some of the communication at the schools, and we're all communicating regularly from high school through the elementaries and mine, essentially weekly, to the families and parent community. We're also engaging ourselves. We're really focused on Instagram right now. It really just helps to have one platform you're focused on, and Instagram links into the websites really beautifully so they stay fresh. So we're really busy trying to be sure we're capturing as much as we possibly can of all the amazing things that are happening. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not on the Instagram pages, it is a lot of fun scrolling. It feels like the place where we can really share what the life of schools are. So your story of a school that's coming up just has inspired us to tell the story all the time.
Love it.
So I think those are my highlights. Busy time, a lot of really fun, positive things happening. Oh, and the thing I didn't mention, which we'll probably mention, we are deep into budget building, so that we can bring you budgets in early January. So we're supporting the building-based folks and the department chairs right now, and Bob and I will be consolidating after the Thanksgiving holiday to see where we're at.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you. A lot going on.
there's a lot going on.
Great. So Maddie, thank you for joining us. I think you might be the only student representative we have today, so we'll turn it over to you if you're ready.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully one of these will be correct. Let's see. I have to share my screen really quick, sorry. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, this might take a second.
worries.
You were part of the challenge here tonight.
Jeez, okay. I'm so sorry. This is my school computer, and I think they still haven't changed the settings to let us share on our computers, so I might have to just read this out to you, but I had some good photos, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll have some next time as well. I'll just read them out to you. So, recent happenings, we had the Young Adult Author Symposium, which happened this past Saturday at CCHS. I couldn't attend, but I heard it was really great from some friends who went. And then we also had some assemblies last Friday. So the freshmen and the sophomores had one about DEIB, which my sister said she really enjoyed. And then me, so the juniors, and the seniors, we had one with this man named Nick Tucker. And it was a really interesting story. He talked about his past experiences and how past trauma can kind of affect your emotions. And I think it was really interesting to learn about just as we're entering like our young lives and to see what kind of we have in our past and what can affect us. So I really enjoyed that assembly. And then we also had sports teams finishing their seasons in the playoffs. So field hockey, we finished our season about 2 weeks ago. And I know soccer, both their teams have just finished. And I think they all had a really good run. So that was nice. And then there was also the fall instrumental concert, which was, I think, this past weekend, which was, I heard was really great. And then the chorus concert is happening this Thursday. And the theme is Gaia, so it'll be a lot of Earth themes, which is really cool, I think. I'll be there, so hopefully people can attend. And then looking ahead, Student Senate has planned our Fall Spirit Week, which will be next Wednesday, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving break, and we have some great plans for that. Our theme, I think, is going to be just school spirit, so everybody will be wearing their merch, and I think it is going to be really fun. We have some seniors hosting it, which I think is going to be really entertaining. And we also just did our course selection, so this is for Q5, which is a new thing, which is, I think everyone's really excited about. I think it's a really great idea. And the ones that I signed up for were, there was a Nailed It one, if you know that TV show. It's like a baking competition, which I think is going to be so cool. Yeah, and then I also, you have to choose like your top choices. And I think I also did another baking one, which is international baking, which is going to be really cool. And I did a pickleball one, which I think is going to be fun. So any of those three sound great. And there's also going to be a Hawaii trip during that time, which some of my friends might be going on, which also sounds great. And in addition to that, winter sports are going to be starting really soon. I know I'm doing alpine ski team again, which is like, it's great. And it's starting the next Monday after Thanksgiving. So that's when most sports pick up, like hockey and basketball, who have tryouts and indoor track, which is great. And oh, in addition to that, sorry, the unified basketball team finished their season recently too. And a couple of my friends are on it who are doing ski, and they said it was a really great program. And field hockey was actually able to attend some of their games, and we went and cheered, and we did the wave for them. So I think that's a really great program too, and they just finished. And I think, let's see, that's all my updates for you guys. So thank you, and sorry about the screen sharing.
Matt, if you send me Matt, if you send me the slides, I'll share them with the school committee so they can see the pictures.
Yeah, I can totally do that.
Great.
Thank you, Maddie. You are the most positively infectious person I've ever heard. Andrew.
Maddie,
Thanks, sorry about this.
Maddie, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
How do you alpine ski when it's 60 degrees out?
Oh, that's a really great question. We do this dry land training, which is up on the upper turf, which is fun. We do soccer, and if you know Coach Amy Brooks, she loves her leg blasters, which is like a leg workout routine we do on the turf. So you'll catch us doing a lot of squats, a lot of lunges up there for 2 months. We'll see when the snow starts, but that's what it's looking like.
Nice.
But hopefully by, I think, January, we'll be able to go to Neshoba. And we always have a Wachusett trip planned in, I think, December. So that'll be really fun.
Awesome.
Great.
It's great to get us.
Maddie, I'm glad you brought up Q5 because I know Dr. Hunter, you shared the full list with us, and it's so impressive. It's like hundreds of options for the kids. It's really, really exciting.
I have to plug in for cross country. The boys came in fourth, which is a huge achievement in states.
Oh, that's great.
They hadn't even gotten into states, I think, for a number of years. And I believe the girls came in like 13th, which is still
Did really well.
awesome. good season all around.
All right. Well, thanks again, Maddie. At this point, I think we could invite the folks from Gale and Associates to join us at the table. We're going to be chatting this evening about the results from the study that was conducted on the bathrooms at the high school.
Bob will introduce.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'll run the slides. I'll introduce Sal. Sal, you can lose your team member who I just met. But Sal Canciello is a principal at Gale and Associates.
At S3 Design. We're
S3
a consultant
Design now.
for Gale. We're architects and Gale civil engineers. So
Okay.
we work with Gale a lot on these types of projects.
And he has a large team. There was multiple people on the Zoom that we had. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about your team and who's participating, what the roles are before we jump into what the options are. And then I'll run the slides for Sal.
Okay. So we've been working with Gale from even the previous study that was done on the field and the bleachers and the turf from, I guess, like 7 years ago from when we started. We've worked with Gale on over probably 15 amenities buildings, high school amenities buildings in Massachusetts. We have one currently under construction at Hamilton Wyndham and just finished one in the spring at Duggan Academy in Springfield. So we've seen these a lot. We've done a lot of them, have dealt with the code issues around them, and there's some changing code stuff which we'll present, but understand the challenges of the number of restrooms that are required and ways to try and achieve them and get less restrooms as part of the goal, but still meet plumbing codes. So the challenge here was, and it was in the RFP for when we did the study, was to try and find cheaper options, less expensive options to provide restrooms. That's a big challenge. Construction cost has gone up significantly, even from the previous studies that we've done, so it makes it even more of a challenge. Go to the next slide. What we ended up doing was looking at 3 basic options. Let's see what, well, actually, I'll start with this. Since just effective last year, there's a new plumbing code for Massachusetts, which they've tiered the requirements for stadiums that are professional, quasi-professional, and high school. So it lowered the restroom count. You could see there, I can't read the actual numbers from here. But it's significant. It reduced it even below the 50% waiver, which was something that was the state was pretty much granting on a routine basis. It doesn't eliminate the need for the waiver. We just went through this process with Hamilton Wyndham in that they did not reduce the sink requirement. So now you need more sinks than toilets when you get down to the high school level, because they kept the sinks at the same. So we went for a waiver and were successful at Hamilton Wyndham, and the plumbing board did recognize that that was an oversight kind of in the code, and that they would be open to, well, they approved a reduction for Hamilton Wyndham, so we used the same metric for what we planned for here for the number of sinks you'd require. So the good news is it makes it smaller than even the previous study. The number of restrooms do not seem exorbitant now. They seem reasonable for the kind of the size of the facility and the spectators. So we looked at 3 basic options. We first, portables are not considered permanent, so that's not a solution to use portable restrooms to meet the plumbing code. So then we started looking at trailer options, which actually are on wheels and can be plumbed permanently, but if it's on wheels and not mounted to a foundation, the state plumbing board says it's not permanent. They were open to, if it's a skid-mounted trailer, so basically a prefab trailer unit that gets mounted on a foundation and permanently plumbed, they were open to accepting that as permanent if the local authority having jurisdiction would approve it as a permanent building. So it's not a guaranteed that that would work. It would have to be approved locally and then apply to the state board for them to say, yes, this does count as a permanent building. There's some pros and cons to them. One is that procurement is a little more complex, and because you're procuring a unit that you kind of have to describe because it's not being designed. So you have to describe all the components of it and make sure you have competitive bidding, and then you have to bid the foundation and the utilities separate, so you have multiple contractors, and that just creates just challenges in that procurement process that may cause delays. and you just have to figure out how you're going to procure it. There's a couple different ways in the public procurement process in Massachusetts to do that. So just working out all those steps to make sure we had that timeline correct and established. Another thing is that they have a 10-year life expectancy. Most of these are rented and not purchased. The rental company say in 10 years they throw them away and replace them because it's just not worth repairing or fixing. They get a lot of wear and tear. And they feel like trailers, so there is a use issue of it. They're not, you can't hose them down. You have to actually clean them and wipe them because they're, so they're not as durable, but they do provide an alternate. The aesthetic is an issue, but we have some things to show in the other slides of things we've done to other places like this where it was a temporary solution that we still dressed it up to try and make it look a little nicer. The second is a modular building, which the reason why we really pursued the first one a little bit more because the cost really didn't come in any cheaper. And that was an actual quote from one of a company that we've worked with before, and that was their number for the range that they said it would be for their part of it, and then we added the site work to it. And one of the challenges in Massachusetts, all the plumbing fixtures have to be on an approved list used in Massachusetts, and there's only one toilet that they have to get a special toilet and customize it. So the price goes up for Massachusetts. And it is a stainless steel prison-style toilet. At both option 1 and option 2, it's a stainless steel molded toilet with no seat. So the experience of using it is chilly, is not one of the cons. I mean, we asked them about using a porcelain toilet, and they said they could look into it, but they don't recommend it because of just the durability and winterizing and that kind of stuff. So then the other is the traditional design bid build, which we've done 14 of those with Gale in the past 10 years. They are not cheap, but it's the most expensive thing to build. There's toilets and concessions just because the amount of plumbing and utility that's in it. The only thing that probably is more expensive is a lab, but in terms of when all of the square footage is expensive square footage, the price, the price goes up relatively quickly. But we have good historical data on projects we've done that are similar, whether they're block or wood frame, which we can get into. There's options within that depending on what your goals are and what you want it to look like. One of the big advantages are you get to decide what you want it to look like. It's a custom design. It could fit in with the school. It can match the school. It could look, pretty much however you want it to within reason for the budget. So moving along to the next slide, kind of lists, just shows some examples of what they could look like at the top. 1A is just trailers, kind of showing that there's a permanent ramp, permanent stairs, permanent foundation to get up to it because they're elevated slightly. The second one is the example of screen walls that we did wood screen walls around this temporary restroom sales trailer. It was for a private health club, so it was there. It was actually Chestnut Hill for Sports Club LA Fitness Club, and it was there for about a year while they were building the building to pre-sell, and it had to pass the architectural review board for putting trailers in the parking lot in Chestnut Hill. So that's how we.
Quite attractive.
No, it is. It looks nice.
As an outdoor lounge, so we made it look pretty nice. But again, it was temporary. So like the detailing of the wood slats and everything really only had to last a year. So maintenance of it.
Behind that is a trailer.
And it's hiding behind a trailer. Yeah.
Then
the middle one there is a typical kind of baseline portable modular building with just their typical details. Then the CMU option, that's a relatively large concessions building that we did, and that's in Linfield. And then there's a wood frame one behind the people, which isn't a great photograph, but that was in Hopkinton, but it was siding and wood framed. They wanted it to look a little bit more like a park pavilion or residential. So some of the pros and cons of the concrete block is typically it's very durable. It's a single block construction, so the outside surface is block, the inside surface is painted block. So the structure is the enclosure, is the wall. There's no added elements to it. So it's pretty bulletproof, it's pretty efficient. The downside is if you are going to heat it or cool it, it's difficult to make it meet the energy code. So by the time you add furring to take care of the insulation, you might as well go to a wood frame building and put the insulation in a wood frame building. And then add tile to the inside, and because you're buying two systems. They do end up costing about the same, but if you added the framing to the block and tile, that price would be even higher to make the outside block and the inside, what we've done in other projects the challenge with heat really is the Thanksgiving is November and the Thanksgiving game. And we typically will put dedicated circuits in each room so that for that month you could put portable heaters in the building and just keep it from freezing, and then crank the heat up before the game, pull the heaters out so nobody messes with them, and it's warm enough and prevents freezing, and then the building gets winterized and drained after that last game. So then you can see the relative costs. They're on there, the range. Really the CMU versus frame is pretty much the same range. They're all, depending on the amount of detail and how it's designed, is going to make that difference. All of these prices are based upon bidding in the spring, which is the most aggressive we could do. Realize that might not be your timetable, but was kind of the most realistic for published escalation rates going out. They haven't published rates for the next year yet. There are people predicting, but means, if you're familiar, there's a means estimating that predicts the kind of escalation rates, and it's a big range when you go out now another year, but we can refine that depending on the schedule going forward. So kind of in the end, we did recommend the traditional design bid build option because of what it gives you for customizing. You get the concessions that you want, and you get to get an experience that's a little bit nicer. But again, the lower cost option could be possible. There's some challenges, but just trying to show you a range for you to decide how you really think is the appropriate way to move forward.
Awesome. Is it okay if we ask you some questions? Sure. I guess I'll start because I have some. In the first option, which are like the trailers, you mentioned the stainless steel toilets. Those still will be ADA compliant. In my mind, I'm just picturing someone in a wheelchair with no seat. How does that work?
There's a plan in the bigger presentation.
Yeah.
The sketch drawing, which shows that
Okay.
there would be four that were handicap accessible.
Got it. Okay.
Which
They have.
and however they're designated, whether they're male, female,
Sure.
family, gender neutral.
So they're a little bit, the design is
They're
different.
bigger, yeah.
Okay.
And then they're very small for the others in the trailer.
Yep.
You could do more bigger ones, it's just more trailer, more cost, so.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Then you mentioned that in general, the options in the option one are something that folks rent versus buying because
Usually they're rented, but you can't buy them.
Yep. And I assume the costs outlined here are, should we purchase them?
That's purchased, yep.
Do we have estimates for how much they cost to rent? I'm just thinking we have currently been renting year over year.
When we talk to the rent, they won't rent for permanent installation.
Got it. So you can't keep it for a year and another
They'll
year.
rent for you to have it temporarily connected and come in. One of the options we had early on was pricing out, renting it for the season.
Yep.
And then going away and coming back. And the state plumbing board said that's no different than providing portable
Okay.
restrooms,
Nuts.
even though, to me, it seems like a big upgrade to a plastic box. But
Okay. Yeah, no, totally.
and some of the
okay.
trailers that you rent can be really nice. They have the country club models that, that are
Sure.
pretty fancy.
But you still have to rent the same number per the plumbing code?
If you wanted to meet the plumbing code, you'd rent the number that the plumbing code says even, but, it all depends on, are you trying to do this to meet the code requirement for restrooms, right? So
Yeah.
you'd rent, but renting it, they won't install permanently, so it's not a permanent
It's not
building,
permanent, right.
which is a requirement of the code.
And I just want to confirm with option one, where you say the 10-year plus
Yep.
or minus. After 10 years, it's a completely full.
Foundation can stay. The box pretty much goes away. It's just because it's a trailer,
You're looking
right?
at this.
So the outside, the materials are, fiberglass and those joints leak over time and they just start to delaminate.
Would those costs be inclusive of like disposal costs?
No.
No, so there'd be more cost to this than just what we've outlined. But these costs, you believe, in the option one, are inclusive of all of the labor costs, which you mentioned would be, you'd be procuring multiple vendors.
The best we can estimate.
Yes, okay, right. But they are inclusive of your best estimates to those multiple procurement
But
channels.
it's not something we've done before, unlike
Sure.
the others, so I'm not as confident in the
Yep.
numbers. But I
Okay.
didn't want to escalate them beyond too much, because I didn't want to, we wanted to keep it reasonable for what we thought the real cost would be. But it's not a bid, so
Yeah. I think the big surprise for me is how expensive the modular is.
Yeah.
Just because so many folks had been encouraging us, we couldn't possibly pursue this until we know about the modular.
Is there an
the reason
explanation
was
for
were
that?
the
Can
number
you?
of units
Yeah,
that it is to get to the size.
Oh,
And
got
it's
it.
really efficient in the size of needing 2 or 3 bathrooms, but once you start getting to
Needing that
more
many
the
Scale.
Yeah, okay.
On these prefab, the slabs, they include plumbing to the sewer or no?
which, the modular one,
Yeah, 1A or 1B?
1A or 1B is a frost wall, basically, and we had a price for the frost wall and then a price for the unit on top of it.
Okay,
So basically, it's like putting a trailer on a foundation.
right, so where does the sewage go?
The sewage, the same plumbing comes into the underneath there
Yeah, okay.
and connects underneath.
So
And
this
that-
includes plumbing?
Yes, it includes the
Site,
plumbing.
all the site work.
Includes all the site work and
And
electrical.
that would be the same site work, more or less, as 3A and 3B?
Yep, they would all have a sewage ejector, they would all have, because we have to go uphill, so they all have the pricing from Gale of the design of the sewage system and
Okay.
water coming to the building.
You could, I'm jumping ahead, but you could do 1A or 1B for plus or minus 10 years, take the trailer away, and then put a permanent structure on top. Maybe.
It would be a different foundation, though, if
would be
you
a different
switched.
foundation.
Yeah, you'd have to,
Okay.
I would imagine it. They're totally different,
Buildings.
yeah, layouts. I have a question about two things. One is, when you say longer on-site construction, I assume the modulars are pretty quick, but
Yes.
what is the timeline for the custom, either option 3A or 3B?
There's a rough schedule at the end of the presentation.
Oh, that's right, the calendar, the draft schedule comparison. Okay,
And it's just by month 1, 2, 3.
okay,
It just shows kind of where that, how that we would predict that would lay out. It's more time in the kind of, that you don't see,
yep,
the design and the building of the modular off-site. And then your site contractor, probably be a different contractor. There's still a couple of ways to procure that in Massachusetts, but they would basically get the foundation, and then the building would show up, and 2 weeks later it'd be done. Versus you'd have interruption in the area. They could usually do a pretty small area, so it's not usually that intrusive behind a fence, but it would probably be 4 to 5 months of construction.
Yeah.
I have a question on 1A, just for the group. It requires local, whatever board it is, approval for it to be accepted. What do they need to consider that decision? Do they need a full design? Like, do we go to the board ahead of time with a concept?
You might be able to go, it actually would just be first would be the Concord building inspector,
Okay.
and asking them, would they consider, a skid trailer mounted on a foundation, a permanent restroom for the facility? They have to say yes first.
Right.
And then if they say yes, it would go to the state plumbing board to see if they would agree. And probably you wouldn't need much more than what we've already shown in this presentation to say, here's what we're thinking.
And have some municipalities done this?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
That probably has been done somewhere, but I'm not,
Chestnut Hill.
not that I know of anyone in Massachusetts.
Just for a year, though.
We've seen it for,
Stadium.
again, festivals, for things that are like a season,
Yeah.
or a year, even mounted permanently, just to make it a little bit more, or a beach kind of situation where it comes and goes away, but.
You had one with a tree facade or something that I saw in the.
There was one
The
they
vinyl wrap.
had a vinyl wrap,
The vinyl
yeah,
wrap.
Yeah,
which just showing another idea, just to try to,
dress it up.
yeah.
With 3B and 3A have as long, they last as long.
that's probably a 50-year building. I mean, you're going to have maintenance, but
So
the general, just like a school, I mean, the type of construction is
you
going
just
to
think
be.
of CMU as being much more sturdy
Yep.
than.
But even the wood frame would have more maintenance than the CMU, more annual maintenance. You'd have to paint it, you'd have to, the tile would probably have a lifespan on the inside that it would start to crack and get damaged, whereas the concrete block won't. Basically, the concrete block building, you put new epoxy paint on every 5 years, and it's like it's brand new again. But you'll have your occasional toilet replacement, faucet replaced, the typical kind of
The
maintenance.
CMU, what you see most often, I know you guys did Westford Academy, I think, where we went. So is that
You
just
see
the
a
most
mix, it
common?
depends.
A mix, okay.
I mean, I think the ones that end up wood frame are people who think, schools that think they're going to heat it at some point and want to be able to have it be insulated so that they could add heat later.
See.
Are most of them seasonal, so they shut off during the winter?
Most of them are seasonal, yeah.
Okay.
The one in Marshfield was quite warm last week. I went to that one. It was like super heated in there. But some have like, the one in Weston, I think.
Oh, yeah,
that
had like a-
cage, like space heater type situation.
It was like wiry.
Temporary.
It looked like you could see the red.
You literally see the
And a lot of
infrared.
those are installed after.
Yeah, yeah.
By code, if you add heat, you have to meet the energy code.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the
Those
stretch
guys
energy
rolling
code
the
now
dice.
is a lot more stringent. So
Yeah.
most of those were built under previous energy code.
So I had a question about 3A or 3B. We've clearly toured a lot of these facilities because we've been in this project now for, 7 years. Is that really what it is? I mean, it feels like that's what it is. We did some extensive touring last year. So you said that you've built like 15 of these recently. Is it possible for us to use a design that you've already done to have any type of cost savings, or does the whole thing need to be redesigned from the beginning?
It's pretty much redesigned
Okay.
every time because the number of toilets, if it's not exact,
Yeah.
it changes what it is. I mean, we
You
laid
have a
it,
pre-described pad there of
Of the
space.
space? Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the site work is specific to our site in
To our
terms of
site,
connecting to
right.
the sewer.
What do we have at Doug White? If you have much type, do you know?
The Doug White one, it looks like it's if I were to guess, it's either a 3A. I don't think it's modular.
No,
Is
I'd
it
say it's
modular when they built it, so I think it'd
No,
be the
it's
3A.
3A, yeah.
Pretty small.
But there
Just
are
2 bathrooms.
2 bathrooms,
Yeah.
yeah. Because there isn't seating capacity. Because that was another question that we got a lot last year. If the occupancy is less during, say, a football game than it is for graduation, is there any way to alter how many bathrooms you put in?
it's the number of seats.
Right.
It's the number of seats.
This number of fixed seats is how the plumbing code reads.
Which is
Doesn't
what we
matter.
continued to say last year, but we were questioned a few times on, are you sure? Could you bring in portable bathrooms, build something smaller, and bring in portables for larger events? But that is not a possibility. It's all about capacity.
It's all strictly by the code.
Yep.
I'm not saying that people haven't made concessions with the plumbing board in terms of, we'll let you do this if we only have this many people at a game typically, and this is just for graduation that we need this capacity, that there are examples of that happening. But it's not something you can kind of rely on.
Right.
No,
Right.
yeah.
And at Hamilton Wenham, do you know what their capacity is? Do you know
Their
what their occupancy
capacity
is?
was, it was 1,200.
Okay.
And that's
So
the-
you were
that's
able to
this-
get that 50% with the
We got
1,200.
50% in
The frame
Hamilton.
build.
Yeah.
So you're pretty confident that we
Hamilton
could
Wenham,
get that
that's the
50%
frame one.
variance?
Well, the new code, right for the sinks, yes, we got that 50%
Okay.
for the sinks, yes.
It doesn't feel as excessive when you look at the number of bathrooms
No.
relative to
Yeah.
when the last
No,
time
no,
we
not
looked
at all.
at it. what
When
it
you,
looked
when you
like.
look at the regular code, the previous code before the 50%, and see 30 toilets for women, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
a crazy number
Yeah,
for
we
a
were
high
at
school facility.
44 before the
44,
reduction
right.
before, so.
Looking at 3 and 3B, can you say roughly what percentage of the cost is concessions versus the restrooms?
Not really, I'd have to go back and take the numbers apart
Okay.
to do that.
Yeah, no,
That
just,
probably will be a question we'll need to answer.
Exactly.
Guessing it.
yeah.
I just think we should have that information. I don't think it's going to be significant, but I don't know.
It's,
It would just be helpful to know one way or the other.
it's probably less than 15%,
Okay.
yeah, would be my guess,
I
because
was guessing 20%, so.
but
okay.
because the,
Less than 15?
15%.
Oh, okay.
And when you,
For 5.
and when you say concessions, it's a sink and plugs.
It's
Just for
the-
clarity, it's a sink and some plugs.
Yes,
It's nothing fancy, it's nothing,
No appliances. We
No
didn't
appliances.
ask-
and a
Okay.
grease trap. It's a
Yep.
3-bay sink, a hand sink, and a grease interceptor in the floor.
Yep.
And typically, the fit out for the equipment, which ends up being FF&E, we lay it out in the plan, and then we basically say it's owner-provided, contractor installed, because you're not paying the markup on it. Schools usually have a vendor that they can use, and we work with that to do it. And usually the budget for those are about $30,000 to $40,000, so for everything, to fit out the whole concession. And that's with kind of your typical concession menu, you know.
I mean, you can also have people bring in pizza boxes, like you don't have.
yes,
Right.
totally.
There's different
I
ways.
mean, there's a whole
Really
range of,
happens, yeah.
you could build up to it too over years, right?
Yep.
We have the space for it, we're going to start small and
Yep.
add to it.
Do you
For
have
example, at
people-
Hamilton Wenham, we have a locker room that we added, and it only added about $150,000 to the cost of the building, and square footage-wise, it added almost 30% square footage, because there's no plumbing, it's just block walls. So once you're already building foundations, it wasn't, yeah.
Do you ever have communities that build the amenities building or with just the restrooms and not the concessions?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.
This
Really
has been
helpful.
immensely helpful.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if tonight we should sort of give our impressions of these options. I don't think we're going to take any votes this evening, obviously, but if people have thoughts they wish to share, I'm open to hearing them. Obviously, we have a sort of to-do list, which I think would be speaking to the building inspector to see if we could get that approval for the modular unit. I think that would be the first order of business before we would even be able to chart a path forward. Would that be something you and Bob would do, Lori?
Well, I think this is
Is it-
iterative, I think, because we need some direction from
Yeah.
Well, I also, yeah. I mean, I wonder if, are there strong feelings about option 1A or 1B either way from the committee?
Well, I think we can all potentially rule out option 2, the most expensive. Are we going to have unanimity
modular?
on that?
Option
The
2.
modular.
I mean, and just, you know, we did do a little bit of, research last year about option 2, and it is the number of modular units they have to bring in. It's
Yeah,
just,
it's,
and it's actually ends up being an enormous unit.
okay.
And
I'd be
besides the
comfortable
cost
getting
piece,
rid of
I mean,
two.
the timeline shows that it's, maybe a month savings, but that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the intention was to determine if there could be an alternative to traditional construction that would save money. And we were hoping that that might be option 2, and it turns out that that is not. So yes, to Carrie's point, I think we're really discussing 1 and 3 at this point.
Yeah.
I think everyone might agree on that.
1 and the 3s.
1A, 1B, 3A, 3B.
But again, I think those were meant to be, yeah, sort of
different examples.
scenarios.
Yeah.
So I have a question just in general, this applies to the budget as well. Can somebody just give me the current timeline for what we need to do versus the deadline for the warrant?
Yeah, the deadline for,
Going into FY
the
'26.
deadline for the Concord warrant is February, which is a month later than normal. So you'll have all of that lead time up until then in Concord. I don't think we have a deadline in Carlisle yet, but the meeting's earlier, so.
Right, and there is talk of closing it earlier, to allow more time for educating people, public
Yeah.
awareness. I'm on the town meeting study committee, we're actually talking about that on Thursday night, but I suspect it could be closed much, I think 4 weeks earlier than, like, the timeline before, so
So would that be January?
let me see if I can
Okay.
Okay.
dig quickly, but it could even be late December.
Oh, wow.
But hold one sec,
Okay.
in one of many inboxes.
Maybe not real time, but maybe the chairs could advise us with a timeline.
Yep.
And then what they would recommend us to vote, a preferred option, because I think we need to do that instead of, I mean, we can, I really think we should, personally, I think we should vote on preferred option than presenting options at town meeting, which I think is.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Especially with option 1A, I don't like that 10-year, I think that's irresponsible personally with, versus
Seems
a
super
25-year
wasteful.
building.
Yeah.
Because 10 years sounds like a long time.
No.
It
This,
means I
this
could-
building is evidence that it's not.
I mean,
It's been 10 years in the making.
The high school's been up for 10 years.
Yeah, right.
We'd be
We'd have
ready
to
for
start planning
replacement
for the
right
next
now. Right.
replacement upon
I
installation.
mean, Andrew would probably still be on the committee and they'd be talking about everything.
Andrew will have all the historical knowledge.
Maybe by then he will have done charting the course.
So, so if you could just
Sorry.
give us a timeline, because I don't necessarily want to decide tonight by any means.
Oh, no, I don't think
So,
that makes sense.
And if we could get just some of that more detail on the real, if it's really going to be a 25-year building and the real different, the real.
What's the 25 years? Like, I think it's the difference between 10 and 50.
Okay,
Yeah, because like 1A and 1B is 10, and 3A and 3B is 50.
50, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
I misspoke. The decision on when to close the warrant is in December.
So we have time.
There's talk of moving it to 8 weeks ahead of town meeting instead of the traditional
Oh, so after Concord.
May.
March.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
February is your timeline then?
Process-wise, just to remind you, when we were asked to do this, we told Gail we were going to pause at this point, and they're not going to do anything until we come back to them with the preferred option.
Yeah.
Of course, that's
So if we
reasonable.
wait till later, we'll wait to have the design. The design process will take about how long? 3 months if we went with 3A or 3B, there's an additional 3 months where they need to develop the design. So when I think we talked about this initially, and the school committee asked me when I was going to get this document to people and the process started, I think the committee felt that they could make a decision in a month. And maybe you
Yeah.
need more time now, but I'm just reminding you of what we talked about before.
So I guess that means that we should be prepared to vote on an option December 3rd.
December 10th.
Yeah, if you're confident. I mean, the timeline gets delayed if not. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of
I
positioning
think
it.
that's, I mean, I think we have,
And then we can do some homework between
yeah, I
now
think we
and
have
then.
most of our questions answered.
Well, then Julie would be back with us too on December 10th.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm comfortable, and in the meantime, can we funnel questions through the chairs that can be shared with the group?
Yeah, if there's any questions that you want us to research, we
That
can.
would
The
help.
only thing is they said bid in the spring, but we couldn't put it out for bid until,
I think that
town
was like,
meeting.
that's what
Correct.
he was, that was like a asterisk. That was my
Yeah.
interpretation.
would that dramatically alter the numbers?
Maybe, I was talking offline with Sal, maybe over a year, 4 to 6% is the guess, but, if we went out to bid after town meeting, that's not too much later, like it's 3 months. And the construction would happen afterwards. So there'd be some escalation, but it wouldn't be dramatic.
Yeah, but then you have a year of inflation too, if you.
Right.
And could construction start in the summer of '25?
The summer, I don't know. I would think we would need to process that before the next meeting to answer
That's what I'm
it.
saying with that. I'm just worried that we'd have to wait a whole nother year.
I don't think you, yeah. If you helped the design to keep moving so that at town meeting you had a design in hand that we can bid out,
You can move pretty quickly.
you've got to wait for the bids to come back and award the bid. So that's where the timing in the summer is a little tricky. So it's hard, we'd have to vet it, as Bob said.
And I can't bid before the town meeting awards
Right.
it. I can have
No,
it
I'm
ready to
just saying,
go.
but if we
but
gained
yeah.
out the timeline, if it passes that town meeting, then this.
Yeah, see what that would look
I
like.
just would hate to miss it doesn't seem like a good fall project, but maybe it would be okay. I don't know.
Maybe while we still have Sal and team here, we ask
Oh, yeah,
them
you're
what they
still
think.
here.
You want to come back up?
I don't know the answer.
Yeah, we'd have to scope it out with them.
All right, so say everything goes according to plan, it passes in both towns, we go out to bid, somebody bids on it, when could we start construction?
And our town meeting is
In June, which is
beginning of June.
Yeah, the first weekend.
Like,
So you'd be able to, we'd be bid ready, and you'd be
Yeah.
able to bid right after town
Correct.
meeting. So then that's a month for the bid process,
Yeah.
and then probably a month for them to mobilize. So you'd be starting
August.
August, and you'd probably be able to be finished probably December, early December.
I mean, there are
We
creative
opened it-
options.
We've done that before, open the building and winterize it right away.
Yeah, sure.
Contractor winterizes it,
okay.
and then they come back and help you
I
open
mean,
it
it's
again.
not like we're taking anything offline that,
No,
you know,
there's
so
nothing.
we just have to
We have to move
move the porta
potties,
potties to a different location, which I
We just
think.
have to navigate the field.
We'd have to
Can
do-
we use the field during construction is
Yeah.
one question I have.
Especially for practicing during the
Yes.
day while there would be an active construction site. Yeah.
More to come. We have an idea.
I know, Bob, this is probably a question for you, but if we have follow-up questions for the Gale folks and ask for some changes to like different specs,
Yeah.
can they work on that, or is that even off? I know they're taking a break after this part of the agreement, but.
I think if you wanted to ask, I would just aggregate questions,
Okay.
and maybe I send them a batch at a
Okay,
time
great.
instead of one-off questions.
Okay.
There might be a question like, Brian's question, what percent was concessions?
Exactly, that's what I was going
What
through.
about like having, I don't know, a little small extra space for
Athletic training.
somebody who's injured or something?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Joncas's ask, is that
Yeah.
you think of a training space in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And things,
What you can't do is send us each individual the ideas, and we ask them to
No.
reconfigure
of course.
drawings and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Do we want a deadline for questions, so then there's
Yes.
time
Good
to get
idea.
the answers back for December 10th?
December 1st?
Yeah, get past the holiday, I think.
Yeah, what's that? Is that next?
It's a Sunday.
December 1st is
Trying
the
to pull up the
Sunday.
calendar.
So December 2nd?
Second.
Yeah.
Or do you want to just say the 3rd, because it's Tuesday, in case anyone forgets or is traveling?
So that's really not that much time that sounds like a lot of time, but
But we need to have them have time to answer it, and we need on the
totally,
10th,
that's what I'm
so.
just saying, is everyone comfortable with that? I almost would prefer do it before Thanksgiving.
I would recommend
Okay.
that because
Then
we
you're
have
gonna
to give you
forget
the
about it,
information
yeah.
in advance of, like
Okay.
4 days in advance of your posted meeting.
Yeah,
So you're going to have information, like,
yeah,
So
so
a
I
week
would say
from
the
tomorrow?
27th,
Great.
yeah.
And if we could get the specs on what the athletic director would like to see down there, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
His biggest ask is a trainer space.
No, I understand.
The
but what-
specs.
how much
What that
space?
looks like?
Yeah.
8 by 10,
It doesn't
yeah.
need to be plumbed, as we just know.
Yeah, no, that's
I
a
mean,
great,
They get rid of the.
Well, also,
bathroom
is there
water.
space? Like, do we even have space?
Not in what they've given you at the moment. So we can ask them to
on the
give us some
concrete block.
feedback.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
there's,
Okay, so November 27th,
Questions are due.
send me and Julie any questions, and then we'll send them to Bob
Great.
for you all.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate the in-person visit.
Yeah,
We've been
very
on
much.
Zoom with them a lot. It's always nice to meet people.
Totally.
all right, we'll be in touch.
And Westford does have a small training.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
But is that
remember.
attached to their old building, though? I thought they attached the new building to the old building. The old building, they definitely have storage there.
Yep, but it's near the old building.
It's near the old, but it's in the new building.
It's
the training.
very small. It's just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
place to touch down place.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Have at.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
That's great.
Yeah,
Maybe we can subdivide the
Okay.
existing.
Westford building.
Yeah.
Specifically,
Yeah.
model it after
Nothing
that.
huge.
Awesome. All right.
Great.
So we will have questions in to Julie by the 27th, which is next Wednesday, and we will all be prepared to vote on a preferred option at our December 10th meeting. Everyone
Can
consensus
she
on that?
share the questions and the answers?
Yes,
with them?
yes, because
Okay.
that is not deliberation, it's just fact-finding and
information, okay.
sharing, yeah. Okay, great. And now, oh, yeah, Bob, do you have a question?
No, I
or
was
you just-
waving by, that's all. Thank you.
Goodbye. Now I'm going to turn it over to Lori and Shelley to talk about our professional development updates. Everyone has received Shelley's presentation in advance. Thank you, Shelley, for all of this work. We've got you back to back, and I can just say for myself, we're so happy to finally start hearing from you in your role.
Sure. Okay, so I think it's working this time. Last time it wasn't working.
Yeah, it is working.
So again, you've seen all of the slides, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a quick overview. When I started here in July, it was really trying to assess and look at past work, but I also like to start with like an inquiry, kind of like some question that we're all thinking about as leaders and educators. to drive our work. So this was the question that I really wanted to think about and that I think really lends itself to the idea of what strong professional development is. It's about adult learning, of course, and supporting them in their practice, but then ultimately, we should see those observable kind of actions or the application of learning, right? That transfer of learning into collaboration and engagement and thinking about ultimately how students are learning and growing, right? By the approaches we take as leaders and educators. So I've liked to use this kind of way of thinking about how we're looking at data because we always talk so much about data, right, in schools and instruction and student learning. So this comes from street data, just this idea that there are multiple levels of data. And if you think of, say, like Google Maps, you have like the very universal broad data, which is like your satellite data, but then you try to get more granular when you look at the level 2 and level 3 street data. So all of those are important levels. For example, all of the assessment data we talked about last time, and then what teachers are thinking about with their own students, what schools are looking at, and what we look at the district level. So that's important for us because it's about that triangulation, but that there's multiple data sources, and really ultimately level 3 is really thinking about what are the experiences, and again, the outcomes for students and their learning and experience, as well as when we think about professional learning, what's critical for teachers so that they have the tools and the capacity to grow and expand and support diverse learners. This is really just that same idea that the data should be informing our approach, but that we have to contextualize it, and that if we are equity-centered, the data informs our approaches to equity and, of course, ultimately our strategic plan and the outcomes we put forth. This was really just what really strong professional development the standards are for professional development. I would say it is a challenging, and this is across probably all school systems across the country, really, that trying to get deep, impactful professional learning, I would say, especially when we're thinking about the diverse needs of students, the complex needs, as well as just a schedule of any building leader, district, as well as, of course, our classroom teachers. So it's hard. I would say that this is hard work. It's ongoing, and it needs to continually evolve and improve. And year after year, I think we strive to get better at this. So I did a quick overview of just looking at past work, particularly when I started here in July, trying to look at that. And then in August, as a leadership team, we met and discussed some of this kind of data points, so that would inform how we were thinking about professional development and what was used to be called PD paths. So you can just get that overview of what it looked like. These were some of the quotes that was shared from some of the surveys and comments and exit slips that were from last year. We use this as, I think, a really good starting point, and I think that idea of triangulating that with not just a survey, but really from Dr. Hunter, from the principals, from teachers at that level of really just saying like what they need has to have practical application, has to really be about not that surface level, but like, well, what does that mean for my kids and my practice every day? Or how does the profile of new students that we're experiencing may not be typically what we've seen, or how has COVID impacted, mental health and trauma, because we saw that as a huge need or a want or a desire. And we want to honor where teachers are coming from and what they feel they need. And so it's trying to do that balance of like what we think, what we see, but also what teachers feel they need and what they want. So it's hard to always strike that balance. So this just again gives you kind of that overview of what we saw as part of the comments. And so when you go into what this idea of PD really being hard, this was like that quick snapshot of survey, and there's a lot to take into here, and we could read and go in, and we have done a bit of that in terms of granularly looking at that, and what does it mean? And one thing that's a highlight, and I think this is probably, again, a common thread across many school systems, is that peer collaboration and cultivating that kind of collaboration, as well as like the professional collegiality and that reflection that each of us, because we're in the same boat, so that teachers really respect other educators and building their leadership skills. So that's what we wanted to honor. And I think that's always been a strong point in Concord. It's not that it's anything new, but it's really thinking about who has the best practices that should be leading and that are ready to go into that, like really what's an expert teacher or a master teacher, right? An exemplary are those that can then teach others how to build those skill sets. So this is what's leading to the work for this school year. As you know, we have every summer new teacher orientation. One thing I think we did do with this August was give more time in their buildings because they asked for it and said, like, I really need, like, teachers especially who are beginning, even if they are advanced educators or experienced educators in other districts, which many of them are, they don't know the Concord way, right? Like, they don't know their school buildings. They want time with their mentors. They need time with their buildings. And so that the central office kind of oversight of those 2 days is, they're overwhelmed because they're seeing students very soon. So it's about their classroom. So I did initial survey about what are some topics that you're interested in learning about this year. I had them also give us feedback about last year as well. And so it's a little bit hard to see in this chart, but there were these questions of science of reading, new IEP, responsive classroom, which is the SEL framework at the K through 5 space. And you can see like there's a lot of range of interest, but we did see that social emotional learning and trauma-informed practice was definitely high on the list. I would say something like I'm leading now as open architect in that data analysis. I would say less teachers are interested in that.
They're not really jazzed to come to that.
No. But it's still kind of one of those things that around that data piece, we do need all of us to use that lens to look at how students are doing.
We're still going to get that to them, just not in that structure.
Just not in that,
Exactly.
It's the idea of like what you want, but sometimes we do, as a district, have to move forward with things that, not necessarily compliance, but I think do improve our work. One thing that I know Dr. Hunter had built in, I think with your negotiating, right, was really this idea that we need more time at the K through 5 levels, so that there are 3 additional times that are grade level. That hasn't historically been in the schedule. So we focused solely, pretty much for all classroom teachers, and then there's some, excuse me, variances between folks who are non-classroom teachers, but this is really just that overview.
Just a quick comment there. This was in place. It's the building-based ones that weren't in
Right.
place before. But what is different is the focus areas of the grade levels, much more fine-tuned and specific in purpose. It used to be quite a bit more eclectic.
Yeah, so it's really targeted because we know that ELA has been a strong focus for the district for the last couple of years, and really that shift of science of reading and making sure that we're really building out strong assessment practices and really that early intervention. So this is where we have the 3 district-wide, so this is K through 12. And this is where we mapped out, I think, across all buildings as a central office, but also getting input from department chairs and teachers about what they needed, what was some of the must-haves, just because some of it is compliant. So the new IEP process is something that's mandated, but it's also around asset-based, and including more student voice. So these are all things that are important and help align curriculum and instruction. So those are the topics. These were the ones that were for all educators. There's still an opportunity for some choice, but it was very, I would say, limited choice to, again, ensure that we have some instructional priorities, and really giving buildings the opportunity to collaborate against their departments and their individual needs in a school.
And just a shout out to Shelley, and I think the whole team. The thing I think we also did a better job of was offering strong content for everyone, which, the specialists, the counselors, the nurses, we've tried before and not really hit the mark. And I think this year we've made a lot of progress there, in that we're not missing the smaller populations of faculty while we're addressing the large-scale needs K-12.
Right. I think we really tried to think of every educator or staff member and where they could see themselves, and what would be applicable to them. So that was definitely something that we took away, was making sure that there's opportunity for everyone to engage and collaborate.
Can I just ask a question? So, do they have choice in what they go to, or a lot of these just directed PD days? Because they seem so specific, so like all the nurses pre-K to 12, so they don't choose like they did before.
Here's the
Yeah.
weaving we did on this. They had choice on the district-wide PD days where we release everybody early. In fact, it's in the CCTA contract that they have choice. What we tried to do a much better job of was providing department-specific options, which most of them were drawn to.
Right,
Because
right.
it was quality and targeted to their worlds. But we had other choices too. So there might have been occasional people that didn't go to the math department equity work. They instead went to trauma-informed. But for the most part, they went where we would have kind of thought we were drawing them. But they had options. So you'll see that in the menus, there were CCHS options, there were CMS options, there were K-5 options, and then there was district-wide options. And it turned into a pretty effective way that people got what they needed to meet who they're teaching and the content they're teaching. Or there was an option for them to really fine-tune what, if they're not in those categories, that they had other choices. So we also made sure they understood what was happening in the times that weren't these 3 afternoons. So the building-based work at the elementary schools, which is new this year, that's from the contracts that we bargained last year, they were clear to say, Willard's going to work on trauma. You probably don't want to go to the trauma in this setting because we're going to do it here at Willard. Pick another, and that kind of helped them decide to opt to the literacy options. So it's been a little bit of a weaving menu that we did pretty quickly because we built it this summer and then rolled it out in the fall. So we're excited to have a whole year to plan for the coming years. But empowering the administrators, I think the building level administrators, the department chairs, I think we unraveled some pent-up needs that haven't been met. And you can see the alignment to the strategic plan all through these options. So it's been both well executed and well received, so.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think even we had in the kind of menu of options, it was really this idea of recommended audience, so folks know. We were saying, while you do have some choice, this is what is recommended, particularly at the high school level, I would say, and even at the middle school. Well, all the levels, I would say. Because it was nothing that was new work or surprising, it was just really extending kind of the ongoing conversations and just giving them more time. That it wasn't a surprise of some topic that wouldn't, it hits the mark. It's already some of the work they're doing at leadership teams and such, especially with this high school options that we're looking at now. It's all of what the department chairs are talking about as a group. And then they were disseminating that within their own departments.
Yeah, I think that's one of our more effective improvements, is that everything's woven together and there aren't really any standalones anymore. And while those had their time and place, effective change isn't over the standalones.
Right.
Yeah, and Cynthia and I were both in the CTA negotiations with our teachers, this was brought up a lot, so just as someone who sat at that table with them, it seems like you have been able, in your role, to be extremely agile and responsive in a way that's tangible, and it's only November, so, you guys all weren't with us. So that is something that I particularly appreciate, because I felt like almost of anything, that came through very loud and very clear, so I'm just really pleased with that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think, as all of us as adults, like we've all been in workshops and trainings and PDs ourselves, and especially those of us who have been teachers, we recognize like that relevance and that immediacy are important.
Yeah, all adult learning theory is about relevance and problem solving to your real world, and why does this all matter? It sounds a lot like the kids, doesn't it?
Yes, there's a
So-
lot that's aligned to that,
Yeah.
and really thinking of backwards planning when we're
Yeah.
thinking about that. So, of course, we also want that data, right? And the best way to get that when you have hundreds of educators in this first PD day that we had, which is a series of 3. So the next 2 will be in, I believe, December and March. So these are 3 sessions that they'll be having on those Wednesday afternoons. And so I reminded, and I really pushed this out to encourage everyone to use their last 5 minutes of their session. And it was really just 3 questions and then some open comment, like open response, for them to answer or give feedback. And specifically, all of that feedback was broken up by the session and then shared with the facilitators. So they got that immediate feedback within, I think, a few days of when we did the October 23rd session. And you can see here, at least with the ratings, they all predominantly, like more than, I'd say 80 to 90%, especially close to 100% strongly agreed that, they felt safe and supported. They will take concrete actions to improve their students' learning, and that they felt that the content contributed to their professional growth. And then again, the open response allows the educators, the facilitators, to consider next 2 sessions.
Is this a practice that has, is this a new practice, this exit slip?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, we've typically done it here.
Yeah, it sounds like we've done it. I think
we're
I don't know
using
if
the
it's
data
been
better.
shared as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've not seen it before that I remember, and I love that. I think that it's such a nice way to get immediate feedback and improve as you go.
Right, and we're open to any feedback, right? So there's the open response too. So if,
Yep.
for those who didn't feel it was as strong, right, like that's where the shift or the addressing of those concerns can happen in sessions 2 and 3.
I think too,
And this
that-
will happen again for the,
yeah. She's asking more pertinent questions.
Yeah.
Because we were getting the feedback, but I think this is much more useful information that we're
You
getting.
mean these questions, like,
Yeah.
I felt safe, those are new questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, the
And
questions are
concrete
the same.
actions contributed to my professional growth, like we're just asking things differently.
Again,
That's great.
responsive
It's
to.
really great, yeah.
For the people the small number who are disagreeing or
Yeah.
strongly disagree, did they generally explain
Provide.
why in that open?
Yeah, there was a lot of open response. And it might just be like it was a little too theoretical, and I'm not sure, and maybe I didn't understand where this is going with next. It would be more common, say, in something that was K through 12 than some of the more department-related directed questions. But I think particularly for those who are running it, who are educators across our districts, those are the ones that are, like, really resonate with our educators. And sometimes it's, like, we need experts from the field as well, but they may not tailor things as well to our audience. So that's feedback that those folks have, like, so for example, the trauma-informed practice, that's an external consultant or vendor, we gave her that feedback as well, if there was positive or all the feedback, no matter what it was. And then there's time to debrief, and they're going to use this time, and for example, the feedback I got informs how I do my next 2 sessions.
Great.
So building leaders, and we are all having those conversations to think about what December and March will look like. And this was just really to map, because we know that our principals are instructional leaders as well, and that they really know their buildings and know their teachers. And so they've been mapping out what that school year looks like. It's limited time, it looks like a lot, but some of this is more around, I include all professional development that's really around grade level meetings, really that job embedded professional collaboration, because that's where the heart of the work is in many ways. So you'll see some blank spots in there. I think it's also because we do have to pivot and we do have to shift and adjust. So it's hard to always map everything out from September through June.
Yeah.
So we just know that there are things, there are shifts, and we take the input from educators about when and where we can build this out. But I think they are very focused on those priorities we've talked about, around whether at the elementary, trauma, or ELA, or responsive classroom. Middle schools, you'll see a lot of, in the high school, secondary level, you see a lot of that collaboration around the departments and some of the practices that they need, or looking at standards, or whatever it might be, in some of the equity work. And so as we move forward, some things that I've been thinking about and that we've been all discussing is really that the DESE teacher evaluation rubric is new, and that we need to make sure that this is front and center to our teachers, but that we are already, I think, ahead of the game in that way, because if you look at some of these new indicators that may not have been there on the previous EdEval rubric, that idea of collaborative learning environment and student ownership of learning, there's really a lot of language that I think that we're talking about in critical thinking, and I've heard a lot that the administrators recognize too, that there's really this idea of like what's a dependent learner versus an independent learner, and that sometimes to our detriment, we want to safeguard our students and our children and protect them and give them all the supports, but then it's got to be a balance of you have to do the heavy lift, and when you get to high school, that level, and when you get to college or whatever you do post-secondary, there's a lot that's on you, so we cannot shelter them as well. We have to give that strong balance and supports, and that critical thinking is much more a stronger component here than what you've seen. And really that, again, that student ownership of learning. So we've talked about that a lot, and so we're gonna be, I think we're using some, I've started, and I know Dr. Hunter goes a lot with the class, into the classrooms, and us being in classrooms to really look at common practices is your only way to really understand what's happening. So that idea is gonna help us consider how is the professional learning impacting.
Not evaluative or anything like
No,
that.
it's really
In fact,
about-
fairly anecdotal at this point.
Right. So in my start here, I've been go to every building, trying to start just going into classrooms and seeing some common themes. It's not a specific evaluation in
No,
your
not at
classroom,
all.
but it's what trends do we see across this building or across this grade level, particularly when we think about student ownership of learning, collaboration, and really the critical thinking. We know, I think across the board, Concord does a really great job around relationships, and that's where some of that triangulation of data. We have really strong educators. They're so caring in so many ways. I think they do create a strong, safe learning environment, but that heavy lift is about how do you facilitate student critical thinking and student ownership of learning. I think teachers are so used to trying to manage all the components, but then how do you allow students, whether they're 5 or 15, like what's developmentally appropriate for what that looks like to own their own learning?
Is it in the growth mindset, productive struggle?
Yes, the productive struggle for students, and what's like in their zone of possible development. And just really, this is the final thing I wanted to share, was this idea that this, again, I think it's a part of your strategic plan. It's this
Yep.
idea of
Sure is.
both joy, critical thinking, equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging. So the high school's already done some work around deeper learning. The middle school is already doing some of our learning walks. Is from this lens of deeper learning. And that requires some shifts in practices. So I think when we think about it, it's recognizing that, just like Dr. Hunter was saying, that our professional learning in schooling in general doesn't allow for that deeper learning in some ways. But the idea is that, particularly for adults, we never learned in that way about deep learning. It's like breadth over depth. And so it's hard for us to sometimes facilitate that type of learning for our educators. But that's really important, that adult learning and student learning should be symmetrical. This idea that they should fairly, to the degree that they can be similar, they should be. And that leadership matters, of course, and that recognizing that inequity, like schools were not, and our professional learning wasn't designed for every student to learn. That's just not how it was historically built upon. So that's just these ideas. So that's what we're working on, that's what we're thinking about, and that's what I'll keep pushing as well.
So Shelley's leadership's been just phenomenal, and I think one of the things she's done very well is empower. We have a very energized administrative team because they've been empowered, again, to be instructional leaders, not just at the building level, but at the district level, because they're sitting at this table now talking with all of us, and I feel like we're on a really good path, and we're just getting started, so it's exciting.
And what came out really clear was that the teachers are definitely collaborating with each other.
Oh, yeah.
And even at the high school, when you talked about, instead of their staff meeting this month, they were going to go in.
Yeah, they're out watching each other,
Watching each other,
shadowing,
teaching,
yeah.
shadowing. I mean, that's just so exciting, and talk about learning from each other.
Yeah.
And learning best practice from each other in different departments too.
Yeah.
I think it's just
Yeah.
excellent.
Teaching is very isolating, and despite being with a lot of humans all day, it can feel very isolating professionally. So we're just looking at, we're kind of opening it all up for different ways to partner with each other, partner with inside experts, outside experts. What do you need? What do you think what do we think you need? It's becoming a really, really nice conversation.
Cool.
Yeah. Exciting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great.
Does anyone have any final questions?
Can I ask a really out there question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, is there any technology that can be used on top of all this to make sure that the teachers are uptaking, like, some of the training? And again, this is out there, it could be nonsense, but like, you know, right now when I get documents, I put it in ChatGPT, I have it summarized, I get themes, all that other stuff. I'm wondering if, you know, you record a couple lessons and you use some AI and it's like the themes are coming through that we did.
Yeah.
I mean, again, out there question, but just generally, is there technology, maybe it doesn't even exist, that we can use to kind of help monitor this?
Definitely, we've been doing that in terms of what you were talking about. Like, if we have this huge survey, we're throwing it into ChatGPT to get some of those common themes. So I've seen the high school do that in their leadership team. I've used some of that. And
We're not all as proficient at it as she might be making it sound.
when you look at comments and you have,
Yeah.
say, over 300 comments, that's
Yeah.
a heavy lift for us.
Ryan Miller's gotten really
Oh, that's
what
so
it pulls.
interesting.
I use it
That I
every
get.
single day for stuff
So
like
we've
that.
been
Yeah.
doing that.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
A lot of
I don't
it,
know about the technology around being able to use ChatGPT or something like that for videos, but I know other districts, I mean, it's intense in terms of like how we calibrate and norm what we're seeing. And I think that's where just some of the learning walks can help. I think I would love to see more over time, us as a leadership team doing those, like I think principals only see what's happening in their building, but it would be great to see other buildings and see other classrooms across the district, so we see that coherence across K through 12. And high school teachers can learn from the elementary teachers, because we know that high school educators, secondary educators really are focused on their content, but not necessarily some of those strategies when you have a diverse group of learners, and whether they're, and if they're 5 years old, you don't get to send them to any other level or classroom. They're yours. So I think there's a lot to learn from each other. back to the technology, I think could be some ways about how we video and share some of those as like unpack, like there's been work around unpacking practice, and that if you can't get into everybody's building or classroom, can teachers, are they willing to video a lesson? And then ask a few questions or a problem of practice. And then you can ask for specific highlights.
Shelley might have a few aspirational ideas for down the road, so thank you for engaging her on that.
Well, there's like research studies on that
Yeah.
too, about norming, and
Yeah.
I think that's where the work is. And then you could probably do it some way with, around looking at student work too.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's crawl, walk, run, and
Right.
Right.
on your, so I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to our goals review. I discussed briefly with
Wait,
Julie.
you're skipping,
What are we skipping?
Debrief
Oh,
of joint
whoops, I'm so
select board,
sorry. I
which is
checked it off
brief.
before. Yep, okay, great. Do you want to lead that, since it was a Concord meeting, or do you want me to lead it?
I think it's just quick, like just.
Okay, great.
I think just last night, we had a great collaborative meeting with FinCom, the school committee, and the select board. And I think it was a good discussion about capital. It's a first step. And hopefully between now and the December 17th,
Oh, with them.
17th,
Meeting.
the next meeting, we will have made even more progress towards like a timeline. I think that was the next question of them vetting their list.
Yeah.
Starting to piece together a more accurate look at what the capital plans would look like when they're merged together. But all in all, I thought it was a really great meeting. I don't know if anyone has anything to add, but
I'll send you the recommendation. I still don't think we're sticking to the task force recommendations.
I think this is a new thing, and also we, in our goals, we committed to it. Like, this is one of the goals that we all voted on and talked
No, but
about.
we are all supposed to live in the framework of the task force recommendations, and I just don't think we are. So in terms of community feedback, which was sort of central to us coming to consensus on that committee, because there was a strong, and it would say the citizen side, to have a standing committee, a standing capital committee versus this framework.
Yeah.
So that's.
I
Yeah.
just think all the committees coming together is something that we
No,
ought
it's
to
amazing.
celebrate
I-
and like,
Totally.
and embrace and actually like put everything we have to make it successful. Because I think that's the best way, that's the best thing for the town.
Right, so if this district and the town can send out, go here to find the plan that was reviewed, right, to the community, and if you want to provide feedback, that's all I'm saying, just give them
Yeah.
some mechanism to send.
To offer feedback.
so-
Yeah, and maybe
yeah.
that, I think that was heard, that maybe in the December meeting, there would be some opportunity for public comment. I feel like Mary maybe said that, but we
Sure.
can.
I just get worried too, like, so are you saying that your preference is to stick to the original guidelines set forth in that capital planning task
We
force?
didn't decide to not do it.
Okay, so then would your recommendations also include going back to the original tiers outlined?
We agreed to add the tiers, but we didn't say get rid of the rest of the process. If that's what we want to do, that's fine.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I get worried that I don't want to send the message that some of the things we like in the task force, we're going to stick to, like the ones you've mentioned, which I think are great. I'm not saying that I disagree at all with your perspective, but I get worried that if we begin to cherry pick pieces of those recommendations, because the tiers are very clearly articulated in that document.
I understand. I'm just saying, if we want to throw out the rest of the recommendations, just do something new.
But I don't even think the tiers were formally thrown out. When I brought it up, like thrown out like the trash. Like, for example, like when I inquired last year to the chair of the FinCom and someone else, saying, were these changed? I was told it was a typo for a long time, and saying they hadn't been changed. So I think there wasn't clarity around that either, when those changed, the tiers, for example, the dollar amounts on the tiers. So, yeah. So again, like, that's all I'm saying, is I think we need to be consistent in our messaging to our collaborators, which are the FinCom and the Select Board, about,
But the
what we
select board
desire.
owns this process.
Sure.
Yeah, so they should tell us, we're going to do it this way, which is fine.
And I think they have. I mean, I think what came out of our August meeting was the departure from the recommendations.
They set a goal, the select board set a goal of working collaboratively with the other elected committees, or us and FinCom in particular, and this is part of that. I think this is part of that, seeing that goal out. And then I think we also echoed that in our goals. So even if, I think we're taking what's working with a system. I think it seems like we're using it more of like a living document than something that's set in stone, which.
I will send you the guideline.
I've read it, I've seen it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that should have been our first meeting, right? Yes.
But in August, didn't we?
we in August.
Commit to these 3 meetings, right?
The plan is presented at the first meeting. We didn't see a plan until yesterday.
Well, we didn't even really see a plan yesterday, to be fair.
I think I feel like we should agree to see this through. We've all agreed to it up to date. All of the committees, we should agree to see this through. And then at the end of the year, we even set a goal, which we'll discuss in the goals review. We set a goal as a committee to review this very process at the end of the year. And I think that is the time to have this conversation. Because right now we're in the midst of it. I don't think we're going to cancel the 17th. I don't think we're going to change what we're doing.
No, but I think we should have another meeting after that. That's the only thing I'm saying.
I think that we have that opportunity if we decide we need one. Like right now we have meetings scheduled, and let's see this process through as we've agreed to, and then.
And just reminders, there are other meetings besides the 3 big joint ones. We're in front of FinCom December 5th with the capital plan. I know the town's got the same requirement to do that. Later, there'll be a hearing on the plan, whatever we bring forward. So I think, I was there for 2 years with you, Cynthia. I think the point that I heard was make sure the community can access the information, because there had been some big projects that hadn't really been publicly vetted enough, and felt like there were some surprises there. I mean, we are in public a lot on these plans right now, so to some extent, the community member has to want to engage with that, but I think we're out a lot. So maybe we're not exactly lined up on numbers of meetings and exactly how, but I think the spirit,
The spirit of what we're doing is,
Yeah.
I think we've kept true to that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so moving on to our goals review. Julie, again, this is sort of her baby, if you will. So what she asked me to do in this review, which I think can be very brief, is to put to the committee, do we think that there are any goals that we are off track with? Because currently she has everything in her green category, which means we're moving along, with progressing towards achieving our goals. But because different groups have ownership of some of the specifics of our goals, we just wanted to put it out there to all of you to see opinions on whether anything specifically needs increased attention.
So should we just go quickly through them all, or?
I don't think we need to, because I think they're pretty much all on track.
I think they've really kept us on track, particularly the Campus Completion Committee, because every time we think about it, we schedule new meetings. So I think it's great. We're meeting again on Friday, so I do think this document is helpful for all of us to use internally.
So do we turn them all green? That's the wrong green.
Yep.
Oh, geez.
This is going to be fun.
You do that after.
You can do
I have to answer to Julie.
At least it's not red. I like it.
So I just think, again, like Tracy, I echo the appreciation for this document and for all of us to committing to following it. So thank you all. All right, now, you don't need to do that tonight.
Well,
Concord item for you. Yes. You'll have to
suspend your
okay, sorry, I'll stop my clerical
clerical duties as chair.
Paintbrush at the top and just paste this, copy and paste.
But you know what, then you get the lines with the actual goal language, no? Maybe not, okay. Anyway, I'll work on that later. Okay, so we are going to have, this is more, I think, for the CMSBC group. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happens next after we surplus Peabody. Do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, I'm going to actually throw it to Bob. We just want to start the conversation with you at a very high level. We're not talking about what's in Peabody, and that's all getting managed through the building project. We do need to loop you into that, the Concord committee at some point, but not urgent. Just the high level of returning the building back to the town. So Bob's got some.
So I've been in contact with town, Anthony, and Gail Dowd on the project as well to talk about this. What we will need to do is have a school committee vote to declare the building no longer needed for educational purposes and to turn it over to the town. I have an example of language from New Bedford that did this for a couple school buildings recently, and I'm seeing if I get responses from other districts. So what the town will need from us is that vote, and then Anthony is talking to legal counsel as well. We may, if they need anything else from us, they'll communicate to us what they need.
Okay,
it's not
great.
clear yet. It's likely, he thinks, that we'll need to go to town meeting and have it formally approved. What they would ask, I'm sure if you voted, you would support it. The school committee would kind of recommend support of an article at town meeting, as probably with the select board and FinCom. So there is formal steps that need to happen. I guess the focus we have is just getting things out of the building, making sure it's ready for them. And then they'll have to go through their process. There are a couple things to be aware of is that we do have some utility costs that were not budgeted in either the school or the town. They're not, I would say they're not that substantial relative. You've heard us talk about our out-of-district costs and the scale of those. It's about $4,000 a month each, $4,000 to $5,000 for electricity, $4,000 for heat for 4 months, so $16,000 in heat, about $20,000 in electricity. We're not going to use that much electricity this year because if we're not in the building, we'll be turning things off. We'll have the heat at a lower setting. So I think those costs will be less than the prior, significantly less than the prior year. And that's something that, again, is budgeted in neither place, and we'll sort that out through the year-end process.
Those actuals for March, April, May?
March through June.
June, okay.
I think March, we were talking about this earlier, and it dawned on me that I should say out loud to you, we're not going to be out February 24th because we've got to get the furniture, we've got to empty the building. So the month of March, I really think is the schools. We're still actively in there doing things. It's April, May, and June where I think we'll be out, so.
Bob, can you just repeat, what would be the total number?
I'm going to guess it's 30,000 or less.
Okay.
Or less.
Total, like over the February to, okay,
March through
June.
March through June. It was a little bit more last year, but our usage is going to be down.
And that's bare minimum, right? Like, we're not doing landscaping, we're not doing cleaning.
That will not be allowed.
We are walking out the door.
Is it something you need to keep an eye on the building?
We probably have to visit it until we officially turn it over, but not regularly, not daily.
Okay.
Are there cameras there?
There is camera
So
system.
we'll just keep the cameras on.
We had an annual maintenance contract for some of that stuff, so we've already paid for it.
Yeah.
So outside of, are we going to have like a community day where people could take furniture or no?
Yeah, we've, through the project, we've tentatively slated that, if all goes on schedule, for Saturday, February 15th.
For both buildings?
To open up both buildings. And this will be part of a process. Bob's got to bring you a procedural piece that we think you have to formally approve as we surplus everything. The inventory's done, so we can bring you that at some point, too. So you officially declare surplus of what's in the building based on the inventories. We then open it up to the community, which we have slated for a couple hours on the morning of the 15th of Saturday in February. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what people decide they want to take. And then we're going to get all the vendors lined up to start disposing, donating, recycling, all that work that needs to be done.
$200,000 in the budget for disposal.
Yes.
So are you encouraging teachers to leave things behind if they don't want to bring them with them?
We're going to get a couple of dumpsters on site here soon so that if they're purging, some of it can get into the dumpsters, but yes, in theory, they can leave it behind. I think we're going to try to be pretty organized about it, though, and not have them just walk out with them. hodgepodge of a mess behind them, so
Well,
that
we
there's
have to
already
control
been some
that.
sorting and things like that.
Confidential information. That's what I'm worried about. There's just,
Oh, well, they own that process in terms of confidential things and shredding and all of that.
there's probably a lot of junk.
There's a lot of junk,
30 years
yes,
old,
I'm
but still,
sure.
You don't want it to,
Yeah, so,
I mean, it could be your report card sitting there.
yeah. Oh, boy. We've been already encouraging purge, so that we're doing that from here on and not all at the last
I
minute.
was still a good student, Milt.
I'd like to get my report cards, maybe.
Denied. They were talking, Ian was saying that he doesn't think we'll use all that $200,000, so I'm wondering if we can use some of it for utilities?
It's separate. The
Yeah.
project budget's not something I
Yeah.
have access to.
Right.
It's our-
Well, in the project of getting everything out, you need heat and electricity. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not going to pay for operating costs of our
Okay.
existing buildings.
Tried.
No,
Yeah,
I-
you did. Yeah, good thinking.
I would try to do it if I thought it would succeed, but
Yeah.
I would.
I mean, he felt like they're not going to come close to that ceiling, but
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
it'll be part of the leftover contingencies if
Yeah.
all goes well. Don't say that without a
yeah.
lot of knocking on wood.
Don't jinx it.
Demo can be really interesting. So we'll just keep bringing up things and bring you different information as you need it.
So you're talking to Anthony in the town, like okay, that's good.
Yep.
All right. All right, now we'll move to our public comment period. Just as a reminder, our meetings at the school committee are in the public, but not with the public. So as such, school committee members do not respond to public comment. And to ensure equity between our folks at home and our folks in the room, we will alternate comments in the room and Zoom. And then a reminder, our public comment period is for a total of 20 minutes with no more than 3 minutes allocated to each individual. If you're in the room and you would like to make a comment, we do request that you fill out our blue sheets, which are here. And so I will start in the room. And I'll call Michael Williams to the microphone.
Michael Williams, 1284 Sudbury Road. I'll cede my time to my attorney, Andra Hutchins.
Good evening. My name's Andra Hutchins. I'm not a resident of Concord or Carlisle, but I am an attorney and I do represent Michael Williams. So if I may kindly just have a few minutes of your time. The reason that I'm here and speaking on behalf of Mr. Williams is regarding what was on your agenda, that you intend to go into executive session to discuss an open meeting law complaint against the Concord School Committee filed by Michael Williams. I'm here to say that it's not appropriate to address that complaint in executive session. It is more appropriate to address it in open session, given that the complaint is against the Concord School Committee as a whole. And per General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, which is the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, executive session should be held, and as is stated in your agenda for this particular reason, to discuss complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Again, as stated in your agenda. There are 10 reasons one can go into executive session, but the one stated on your agenda is that one. However, here, the complaint has been brought against the Concord School Committee, which is considered a public body defined by that same statute, and as such is not a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. And the public body, as defined by our legislature in Chapter 38, Section 18, includes a committee of a district, of which a school committee is one. So there doesn't appear to be a misunderstanding that, as the agenda item for today's meeting states that the complaint was lodged against the school committee, that's what it states in the agenda, and not against an individual member or members, then I'm stating that this executive session is not being called, or when you do call it, would not be called for a valid purpose to discuss that complaint, and then the public should not be excluded from your discussion regarding that complaint, and that the matter should be heard in open session. So I'm respectfully asking, pursuant to the open meeting law, that that particular matter, as set forth in your agenda regarding the complaint brought by Michael Williams against the Concord School Committee, be addressed in the open meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, going online, I will ask Caroline Myler to get promoted to a participant or a
Getting about the promotion.
panelist.
Hi, I'm Caroline Myler, 1007 Lowell Road in Concord, and I'm joining to ask the school committee to advocate for the replacement of the Doug White turf fields. I am the president of the Concord Carlisle Youth Lacrosse girls side of the program, and that is our primary fields for the spring season, and our entire fall season utilizes the grass fields, which is a huge disadvantage having to deal with grass. So we know firsthand not having grass is a deterrent to canceling lots of sessions and sometimes can be a little uncomfortable for the younger players when there is standing water and it's slippery and super muddy. And we are so lucky to have the amazing fields up top there to play our entire spring season, get as many games up there as we can. And we always get so many compliments from towns that travel to play us, saying how lucky we are to have these fields at our disposal and can play in any weather, can squeeze as many games on there as we can. So we would hope to be able to continue having just those great facilities as turf going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I don't have any more blue forms, so I'm going to stay on Zoom and I'm going to promote Seth Vander Swag.
Hey, school committee and everyone else. First of all, Seth Vanderswal, 181 Alcott Road. Second, thank you so much for all the work you do. It's so appreciated. Like Caroline, I'm here to request that the school committee advocate for the replacement of turf fields at the Doug White Fields, upper turf at the high school. In my capacity as president of Concord Carlisle Youth Soccer, we oversee roughly 1,400 kids using, as part of our program, most of them using those fields at some time, both in the fall and the spring. Considering all the opponents that soccer brings to the field, and that's both Concord Carlisle Youth Soccer as well as the high school programs, along with other usage of the field, you're looking at roughly 4,000 users of that field per season. And unfortunately, as much as I love grass, great grass, it just won't hold up to that kind of wear and tear. So it's really critical that the turf fields, in order to maintain accessibility for all of the youth sports programs that use them, along with all of the high school sports programs that use them, that we provide a very durable field that remains playable regardless of the weather that we have here in Concord, whether it's rainy, drought like we have now, snow and ice. It's really critical that we have playable fields for sports where we need a ball to roll true. And that will lead to availability and accessibility for all the participants who want to use those fields. So kindly requesting that the school committee consider advocating for turf field replacement to the select board. And one last thing is we have the funds generated through the Friends of CC Playing Fields for that turf replacement. So the cost will be borne by a private organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I will have Prow.
Promote. There we go.
Prow, are you there?
Hi, it's Frau Somerset Siri. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm at 305 Ministerial Drive. I am in support of the amenities building and your efforts to construct the facility. Having a wheelchair-bound son and aging in-laws, it is crucial to have accessible restrooms near the CCHS field. For us, before leaving the house, we have to plan our bathroom breaks, consider how long we're going to be out of the house, think about if where we're going has accessible restrooms. Porta potties are cumbersome and requires 2 people to assist my son, which is not feasible in most situations. Having the amenities building will give me, my family, and many others, especially those, of course, with young kids, will have a peace of mind to attend events without having to worry about basic bodily function. So definitely support the construction of the amenities building, and I want to thank you, the school board, for your dedication to our students, teachers, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll promote Mike Carney. Mike Carney.
Promoted.
Mike, I think you're promoted if you're with us.
Yes, thanks, Alexa. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I just want to reiterate Caroline and Seth's comments as the director of the youth lacrosse program. It's been a huge part of our program, having access to the Doug White fields. Replacing them with grass fields would be untenable to actually having any practices in April and May, given the unpredictable weather. And as Seth mentioned, we've worked hard as a program with other youth programs to raise the money to actually replace these fields privately. So we think it's a huge, situation for all the youth sports, but maybe even bigger situation for the high school programs. I think there's almost 30 teams in the high school that will not be able to operate if they don't have access to turf fields and if they get replaced by grass. And so I think it's a huge situation. And also I've looked at other towns, Lexington in particular, that have had to do replacement fields in a different process that's cost 2 to 3 times the money. So the most efficient way for us to replace these fields are with the private capital that's been raised over the last 18 years. And I think that we should be looking at it very closely as a school committee. And I appreciate your time. 43 Sarah Way. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to call on Mark Russ.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Russ, 20 Authors Road. Thank you to the school committee and the broader group here for all your hard work. In addition to the comments from Seth, from Mike Harney, and from several other speakers regarding the net cost neutrality with the replacement of the turf fields, B, the total number of children, youth, and high school students who will have the ability to continue their sports, their physical fitness, and all other benefits associated with said activities. I'd like to just add that from a net kind of human health perspective, we all know how much we appreciate and want our children to spend more time outside with their peers, more time outside with their friends, more time outside learning how to win, lose, laugh, maybe cry a bit together as teammates. And everything you've heard from the previous speakers, I endorse as the travel director for CCYS, as a parent who has children participating in the flag football program that uses the turf fields, as the father of children who participate in the youth lacrosse program that you've heard a few speakers from tonight, and as the father of 3 children who will be high school middle school and high school students in the future as well. It's rare to find advocacy in which there's not also an equivalent ask for dollars to be allocated. The fact that we don't have to do that here is a rare privilege, But even if just looking at this from the lens of kind of human health, the net benefits of having all those extra months, hours, and field time, I think speak for themselves. So again, thank you, school committee, for anything you can do to advocate for the replacement of the turf fields with the private funds available. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask Dennis Morgan to get promoted.
Hi, Dennis Morgan, 319 Holdenwood Road. I am the president of CC Youth Football. Also joining to advocate that the school board take an interest in the replacement of the turf fields. Though, as an aside, I appreciate Prowl's contribution about the amenities building and certainly second that as well. Now, I thought, why is it in the interest of the school board to take a position on this? And the context is those fields are probably used even more by high school students than by non-high school students through the town youth sports programs. And so that's the context. And as been noted by other speakers, those fields are used 6 to 7 days a week in the spring and fall, 4 to 6 hours a day, and a grass field will not be able to sustain that level of play without significant deterioration. And that deterioration will lead to two things. One is, as mentioned, fields being shut down and unavailable for use both to high school students and the youth sports programs. But secondly, that will then create safety issues, whether it's by divots in the ground causing sprained ankles and knees, or by at a period like this with a lack of rain, hard dirt spots, which will be much harder impact than a quality turf field like we have. So quality of play, safety, third, availability. With this private funding, we can replace this turf over the summer and not miss a season. I'm not sure that's going to be the case with moving to grass. You may lose all or part of a season doing that. And then finally, fourth is cost. As has been mentioned, this is 100% privately funded, and at a time with competing priorities for the town, such as the amenities building, this is a seven-figure project that we can take off of the town and the school's plate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And we have time for one more speaker, and I see one more speaker, so that's convenient. And I'll ask Kristen Haggerty to be promoted.
Hi, Alexa, did you call on me? I'm sorry.
I did, yes, you're here, you're with us.
My name is Kristen Haggerty. I'm a Concord resident, and although I appreciate the other speakers, I wanted to speak about an agenda item. And thank you to Mr. Williams and his attorney for bringing this to the school committee. I hope you consider his legal request to discuss this in open session. As a former committee member who has had open meeting law complaints filed against that, I think it was a good exercise to discuss those in the public because it was a learning experience for everyone involved. And as well, I wanted to remind you, I think it was Chair Hartman that said at a recent meeting that there is going to be a First Amendment training coming up. I believe she said December 5th. So hopefully all boards and committees will attend. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment period for the evening, and we will move to our consent agenda. Lori, you had talked about removing items B and C.
Yes, we'd like to wait and do that at the next meeting.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written on the agenda, with the removal of item B, the 10/8/24 joint minutes, as well as the 10/22/24 joint minutes.
So moved.
And can I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Can I make just
Yes, I
Two
think.
comments.
Sure.
One is, I just want to note on the policy, there's a bunch of policies that are listed in here. Number one, a huge, again, public thank you to Erin, who has done like a ridiculous amount of work to make all of the clerical work behind this a reality. And then she had to redo it because we refreshed the website and she lost all the links. So just a very big thank you. Please pass that on to Erin. Second, the subcommittee met last week, and the I policies we've already discussed as a committee, but all of these AC, ACA, CM, GCQF, and GDO are like just administrative changes. So just quick updates, and we will bring other policies that we discussed to the full committee to our next meeting.
And while we're taking a pause, I think it would be worth noting that the Rutgers Family Charitable Foundation donation is significant at $25,000. So I think it's appropriate to give them an enormous thank you.
Absolutely.
In which district does that go to?
That's for the high school. So the Records Fund is an annual, well, it's the 25th anniversary. So it's an enrichment program that they fund. We run 2 different courses for students to elect into. They're very intriguing and interesting. And then the staff will host lectures on topics of their interest. So we've had lectures on Batman, on innovative musical choices, real-time demonstration of I don't think I'm going to say this right, cyanotype photography by another staff member. So it's really a really great resource for us that allows us to do some really flexible, creative things. So just with great gratitude, we appreciate the support of the Rutgers Foundation.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that being said, all in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Yes, for both.
For both.
Yes to both. Aye for both.
Yes, for both. Great. All right. So moving on to correspondence. At the region, we had one piece of correspondence discussing the amenities building and the enthusiasm and excitement that the code was lowered. CPS?
CPS, we had a few. We had one from someone about the district's laptop policy, a second about the signage at the middle school on the rendering, and a third from the League of Women Voters, just requesting a phone conversation. That's it.
And at this point, I'd love to turn it over to all of you to talk about the different committees with which you liaise and the subcommittees that you all have, and we can just sort of go around. Tracy, you
I'll
want to
start. I'd love to start. Okay, so I'll start with the select board. We were all there last night, but they did do something interesting with their liaison reports, and so they've moved to, well, they tried it last night. It's a written report that's bulleted for things that pertain to the select board, and then if anyone had any questions, they would bring it up.
Oh, interesting.
So it was excellent. So it was, just, and some of it was really brief, and they just do things that pertain to that particular committee, and that was all posted and shared with the committee. So I thought that was great. And
Are you saying that as a suggestion?
yes, actually, I think it's a fantastic suggestion, and I think we should learn from the select
Share
board.
with the public.
Of course, yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, they shared in their packet, and then if anyone, and they did have some questions, like from the table, like, oh, Wendy, I saw you talked about this. Can I just ask you more about that? So you could have just more of a conversation versus a reporting out. And they did also reiterate, these are all public meetings. They're available to the public that we're all seeing, so. So that was
I like
great.
that idea.
Then they are having First Amendment training on December 3rd at 3 o'clock. It's open to all board members and committees. It is hybrid. And the liaison reports are really the most exciting thing that I think that I heard from that. And then the DEI Commission is meeting tomorrow. So that's it for me.
Busy week, Tracy.
I do encourage this
Busy week.
committee to watch the RTE discussion. At the very end, I think 2 people agreed that the biggest problem is the spending. That needs to come down. So, we're part of that. And, they were predicting 7.9 increases going forward, which are.
It was an interesting hearing. I watched it home.
It really was interesting.
So I think it's good to see, the citizens have strong opinions, and
Very strong.
there's
Yeah.
also a lot of good information, I think, shared by the members, all of them, so worth watching.
Thank you.
Middle school building. We had our meeting, what was it, last week? And we had a tour as well. And so the building is coming along nicely. The finish trades are coming in, which is really cool. Remains on schedule, on budget, with a really healthy contingency. People have been asking a lot about the contingency. Somewhere between $5 and $7 million is really healthy.
It's incredible.
And then I think a lot of people read about the lockers, so a little unfortunate, but we're going to go with what was already built and installed, and I think
See how it goes.
see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep, just I think one update on my end. The Carlisle FinCom met last Thursday, and the first agenda item was debriefing on the joint meeting with the Concord FinCom late October. And, you know, essentially the feeling was Carlisle, the conversation was probably a little late for this year. You know, the conversation probably should have started in August, but the Carlisle FinCom is, you know, intrigued, excited about the collaboration. Also looking to learn more from Concord in the process, but there'll be definitely some collaboration this fall with the goal of really ramping that up next year.
The committee I liaise with is meeting this week for the first time this fall, so it's PEG access, so. And, geez, okay, so now I can't remember the sustainability committee. We talked a lot about initiatives at all the schools. Everything's going really well. I think they've really gotten to, not recycle, what is it? At the middle school, we're gonna move over to the new middle school to, what is it, the food waste.
Oh, composting.
Composting.
Yeah, we're pretty up and running.
Yeah, so
more
everywhere. It used to be like
extensively, yeah.
only, not the middle school, and so we meet again in February, I believe. I think.
Quarterly, so January, February.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
And that's it.
Right. Thank you, guys. At this point,
I have a couple.
oh, sure.
Sorry.
Oh, forgot you. Sorry. I have nothing.
You do have campus completion, though.
Yeah.
Well, I figured one of you would do it, because
thought
I'm
you would do it.
cheering tonight.
Oh, sorry. There's nothing new to report. We're meeting again on Friday.
Great update. If only we had bullets of that.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion. Are we ready for executive session motion?
Wait, hold on.
She has some, sorry, she has,
Okay, so a couple of things that have happened this week. One, Aisha and Domingos could not make it tonight, but Julie and I have been in touch with them. We have scheduled we have bi-weekly meetings, so we'll talk with them again on Thursday. We had a conversation with them about the YRBS last week, so I asked them if they had anything critical to bring tonight, and they didn't, but just
Okay.
the playground committee is like thriving. They are really hitting their stride. My daughter came home yesterday, ran in the door up to my office, opened the door, and she was like, "Mom, they put out a sign from school, and it says they have to raise $610." Close. So, but they are really getting moving on that, and it's exciting to see. So if anyone hasn't heard about it and wants to make a contribution or get involved, there is a lot of information on the online. So around
What is the number that the committee's going to fundraise?
610,000.
That's what I thought, just so people understand that is all fundraising money.
Correct.
That's going towards it. And I think we did talk about that last night, and you talked about the offset of the donation we got for the Thoreau Playground, the CPC funding, and.
Yes, so they're already well on their way. They have, I think we were I think we're close to 300,000.
Are you serious?
Well, because
I was
we
feeling
have.
real cheap in
Well,
light
we
of
have
that.
a $200,000.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's part of it.
So that's part of it. That's like a
Donation.
starting point, yeah.
Really
And then, so anyway, it's a really eager committee, so, yeah.
The thermometer at school puts the pressure on.
Yeah.
It does. Well, it gets the kids really excited.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I would like to move to recess, if that's okay?
So I'll make a motion to divide the executive session motion into two, which is within Robert's rules, just into two pieces.
Sure.
So the first motion would read, the Concord School Committee and the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under purpose 2 of the open meeting law to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with the superintendent of schools, period. Second motion will read, the Concord School Committee will enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than the professional competence of the individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual, specifically an open meeting law complaint against the Concord School Committee filed by Michael Williams on November 6, 2024, and not to return to open session.
Great. Can I have a motion?
So was that a motion to?
Divide, it's called.
Sure.
And I just
Okay,
I
great.
need a second on that.
Sure. Do I have a second?
To divide them? Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Do roll call.
Oh, yep. Sorry. Do I? I don't know.
It's exec session.
Exec session.
Okay, so all in favor of
We just
separating them into two
Then we-
motions?
Exactly.
I don't think that needs a roll call, guys.
No, I don't.
Because it's not into
Oh,
executive
it's not
session.
into exec
So
session.
all in favor? All vote in favor of it?
Yes.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay. So now can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Now that you're split up,
one?
this is the regional committee
Yes.
that's adjourning, and then you'll do Concord separately.
But do we have to come back, or can we go into them both now? Like, can we vote on them both now?
I think you can vote on them both
Okay.
now.
Okay.
It's two different votes
Right.
now.
Yep.
So as chair tonight of the region, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the region into executive session.
Both
We'll
committees.
have to read it.
Both committees.
I thought you wanted them separate.
No, we need to do both committees for this
Yeah,
motion.
but I'm entertaining the regional motion first.
Gotcha.
Do you want to read that again, Cynthia?
So the motion is the Concord School Committee and the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under purpose 2 of the open meeting law to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with the superintendent of schools.
Second.
Second. Anderson, aye.
Burchak, aye.
Morano, aye.
Rainey, aye.
Rankin, aye.
Watterson, aye.
Great, so the Concord
I
Carlisle
will-
Regional School Committee is now adjourned, and now we will,
I will entertain a motion. Does somebody want to read the second one? Or as written, I will entertain a motion for the Concord School Committee to enter into executive session as written.
So moved.
do we have a second?
I'd like to have
I'm sorry?
I'd like to have a discussion.
Sure, I'll second it.
So, so there's two reasons in this. Number one, are we talking about an individual, or are we talking about the complaint against the committee, or both?
I think we're talking about the complaint that was made. It had a name, it had my name at the top of it.
You were designated as
As a-
chair.
Yeah.
So can I just say,
Yeah.
this was written by our legal counsel,
Yeah.
and under advice of legal counsel, you're going to exec session. So I think you want to decide how much you want to talk in public, knowing that, but that is your decision.
But, so, not written to that, so if we will discuss an individual, there are certain rights that are triggered that should be shared with him? Says to be present at such executive session during deliberation.
Oh, we're not discussing the individual.
We're definitely not going to even talk.
No.
Okay.
No, we're
Yeah,
not.
that's about whose the complaint is about, not the author of the complaint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we heard from the individual's counsel, so maybe another.
Sure.
Okay, so do you want to?
Do you have a second? Oh, no, we did. We just discussed it.
Yes, discussion, so roll call.
Anderson, aye.
Burchak, aye.
Morano, aye.
Rainey, nay.
Rankin, aye.
All right, so thank you for this evening.
Thank
We
you.
will see you in December.
You guys can go.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, Bob. Oh, this is yours.
Thank you.